Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between, and at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week, so in the comments below, let me know your favorite book so you have a chance to be featured on the episode. So let's get started. I had a pretty hefty haul with 13 books, and number 13 from me is Venom War Spider-Man issue 3. I want to like this series more than I do. I kind of wish it focused more on MJ and Peter. I feel like that is honestly the reason why I'm picking this up. I'm not even reading the Venom War actual series. I just want to see them interact, and they have a long history with Venom, so that could bring a lot of great character work that I just don't see here. Mary Jane's not really even in this issue. There's this weird future old man Guardians of the Galaxy Peter Parker happening here. It's just a really trippy issue that I just don't feel like that worked here. Greg Land's artwork is hit or miss, honestly, especially when it comes to facial expressions. So overall, giving that one 2 stars, and that is number 13. Moving on to number 12. I actually think this was better than the previous issues, but not particularly for me, and that is X-Men issue 5. Not a huge Quentin Quire fan, not a huge psychological fan when it comes to the mutants. So for me, this wasn't the best issue, but I feel like this is a more cohesive issue than some of the previous ones. Only focusing on 2 characters was really helpful. You get a little bit more, again, of a cohesive story because of that. Even though it wasn't particularly for me, I thought this is a better issue. It makes me want to stick along with this series a little bit longer. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, we are jumping into these All-In books, and that is All-In Batman issue 153. I feel like this series and this run has maybe a little bit more potential than it previously did. I was really getting tired of Failsafe Batman. There were so many issues of that, and I already didn't love that arc, so to see it go for as long as it did, I wasn't so interested. So to have a new page, a new chapter, I think really works for the series, even though I think for this issue in particular, there's a lot of information that's kind of bogged down. You have the mayor, you have Batman saying that Gotham might be in a little bit of a better place. I did like that opener of someone's in the alleyway and they don't actually get mugged or anything. I thought that was interesting. I liked his conversation with Jim. I obviously like the art, but it's just that middle of the issue when they're really just trying to lay down the law here with Riddler and the mayor that I didn't quite feel like worked until the end, where we get to see the mayor gets shot. We find out Batman might have a brother. I'm like, okay, you piqued my interest again. I want to get this next issue. So giving that 3 stars, a bit better than what we've been getting, but still not completely sold on the Chip Zdarsky run. Moving on to number 10, which is Multiversus Collision Detected issue 2. Honestly, just kind of a fun series where we get to see Bugs Bunny interact with the rest of the DC universe. You get Steven Universe, Rick and Morty. Does it have a huge character-driven moment? No. It's just kind of more of a fun what-if story with these characters interacting and having their catchphrases along the way. So, give me enough to see where the next issue is going to go, even if it didn't blow my mind. So overall, giving that one 3 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, a series I think you guys might not be surprised is a little lower for me, but I think you guys might like it more than I did, and that is Hyde Street issue 1. I have not been a huge fan of the Ghost Machine books, just because they're not for me. That they're good series, they're good titles, they got some good stuff going on. They just aren't stories that I tend to like. I am excited for some of the other Ghost Machine books. I know that the family-driven one I think sounds fun, the Angel Demon one, the Francis Manapool book. Those are 2 books I was most excited for from the one shot. So Hyde Street was kind of that middle ground one that, honestly, that's exactly how I felt with this. It gave me enough to want to read an issue 2, but I don't know how to feel about this character. He's the bad guy of the bad guy in this really bad world. You get some things I just feel like we've seen in comics, especially in recent years before with the X-ray glasses, which was the old advertisements in comics. I had a whole series with Specs doing that. So I'm like, okay, it does feel like it's treading old water. But I liked the idea of this daughter that this main character has, that he's like, oh, go, I don't care about you, and then he starts to care a little bit. I'm like, okay, that's an emotional hook that I could stick with for issue 2. Also, the artwork is phenomenal for this book. It's very haunting and harrowing, and if you like horror, I really like horror, that's the elements I enjoy. I just don't know if I want to specifically follow this character. So giving that 3 stars, we'll check out the next issue, but not completely sold on it just yet. So that's number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is Absolute Power, issue 4. Another series people have been loving, but I'm not a huge event person. I tend not to like event books. I pick them up for these reviews, but I'm just not a huge fan of them. But I do like when a world is affected. I do like when the event books feel like they have purpose. And I don't know if this had purpose as an event, but I know it was a bridge to the event that does have a little bit more purpose, which I am foreshadowing the title here. So I like the ending a lot here. I liked Amanda Waller as a villain. I think she was fun. There's good art. It's mostly an action issue until the end. There's some parts that I do feel like were rushed, like Green Arrow being a hero again, and I'm like, okay, that did feel a little quick. I think there has to be a little bit more story there, and maybe in his own series or in Justice League of America, we'll get more of that story. But I especially like Dreamer and Amanda Waller. I thought that was really interesting. Again, treads a little bit of old water if you read stuff like Identity Crisis and mind-wiping stuff. We've seen it before. But I liked it. I thought it had good art. It just wasn't my favorite event ever, but I think it is more of a solid event than what we've been getting. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, a book I thought really improved with All In, and that is Birds of Prey, issue 14. I've been on the fence with this book. Really, the only reason I've been picking it up because I'm a huge Barbara Gordon fan, and I do like Kelly Thompson as a writer. And this reminds me a lot of Black Widow. So if you enjoyed Kelly Thompson's run on Black Widow, there's a lot of fun action here. I think it sets up for a solid story. I liked Barbara and Black Canary kind of working in the background. I enjoy Cassandra being undercover. I like the undercover espionage aspect in general that I think fits really well with Birds of Prey. And the artwork was just such a big improvement. The coloring changed, the style changed. It really felt character driven. The action was really well done. Again, that was very comparable to Black Widow. That honestly perfect run for me. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars really got me more excited to read this series again. So that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Justice Society of America. This is a weird book, okay? So I like Stargirl. I'm a big fan of her character. This was a Stargirl issue where Jeff Johns like, you know what? I might never ever write for DC again. I'm going to tell my final Stargirl story. So it's just her graduating and talking about curveballs, and it feels like this story about Jeff Johns leaving DC and maybe how his comic career has been in the past couple of years as he moves to Ghost Machine, which I thought was really interesting. But it's not just a Society of America book. It feels so disconnected to what the series has been. I liked it. That is why it's higher. I enjoyed the issue. I really love Stargirl, and I enjoyed seeing her graduation, but it's a weird book for sure. So giving that one 3.5 stars, and that is number 6 for me. Moving on to number 5, which is Deadpool issue 7. Great jumping on point for this book. What I like about this book a lot, and what I tend not to like about Deadpool, and why I didn't even pick up the series in the first place, I just jumped on because I've heard good stuff about it from the last issue. I was like, oh, Deadpool's daughter is gonna be Deadpool. That's kind of fun. Let's see what's going on there. But the reason I don't love Deadpool is the humor. I feel like it's over humorous, and I feel like this did a really good job at walking the line that Wolverine and Deadpool the movie did, where there is humor, but then there is emotion. And you get that a lot from Deadpool's daughter as she tries to understand if her father's dead or not, all while trying to take over the mantle. And I thought it was a really fun issue, but also a really serious issue. But then it also felt very modern in some of the ways that she's like looking up YouTube and stuff like that. There's actually a couple of modern stories that happened this week. There's another book that says Riz, that I think for both books worked enough because it wasn't overly played off. So overall, giving that one 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Speaking of the Riz book, that is Shazam issue 16 is number 4. I love this book. I really think it's just a fun superhero story where I feel like the plot moves really well, where the kids, not all the kids have their powers again. Billy's mom wants to have custody of Billy again. You get to see those weave together as Freddy has this new girlfriend. They're fighting villains. It's just like a lot of fun superhero drama and action that works here. The artwork is a little weaker than what we've been getting, but I think still fits for this nostalgic superhero book. And overall, giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 4 for me. Moving on to number 3, a book that you guys should be picking up if you're not, and that's Plastic Man No More issue 2. Honestly, I know nothing about Plastic Man, and I just feel like this is such a fun ride where we get to see a very emotional story with Plastic Man, his relationship with his son, and how that relates to how he is as a hero, and maybe by the end more of an anti-hero. There's a lot of interesting twists and turns here, all while again you're weaving in that family story with some solid art as it tells the story of the past and the present being a bit darker, and the past obviously being a little bit more cartoony. Very, very solid issue for a series I'm really enjoying. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider issue 6. I really like the vibe of this issue. I kind of like the darker side of Spider-Gwen, because that's something that you could honestly only get from Spider-Gwen with some of these spider heroes. You know, you have the angst from Peter, but not too much to the degree of Gwen. Gwen has always been really angsty. She literally has the venom that gives her powers now, and you really play into that role here, where she's like, I'm not Peter, I'm not Cindy, I'm not Miles, I kind of have to be my own hero, and that means I have to be the Ghost Spider, I have to live in the shadows, as she relates to Jessica Jones as a street hero. And I think the darker artwork really fit here. I like the romance with this potential Black Tarantula's son, and, you know, obviously we've seen that before, like the love interest is actually the villain, but the way it's played here, I think it fits pretty well with the storyline, and it makes the world feel a little bigger and her supporting cast feel a little bigger. So I thought this was a really, really solid issue to find its own identity for Spider-Gwen again. So overall, giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to the topic of the video, was All In worth the hype? And I guess if it's my number 1, it was worth the hype. I didn't know what to really expect from this. I knew it was a Darkseid book. I did not know it was a flip book. I didn't know we were going to get a Darkseid side and the Justice League side, but I love a book where you actually feel like there's forward momentum, especially event books. And I think this did a really good job at giving cohesion to the DC universe, bringing everyone together, all while saying, hey, flip side, there's this multiverse where everyone's a villain and they all suck. And we're gonna get stories from that. And I will say the Darkseid side of things from me wasn't as interesting, but I love still getting that point of view. And I like getting the teases to what the absolute universe is going to be. And I love the Justice League side of stuff, where Superman's like, everyone's going to be a Justice League member. We got to bring everyone together after Absolute Power. We were too divided. There's almost a commentary about the DC universe as a whole. Let's bring everyone together. And then, of course, again, the multiverse starts to bleed through. And it's just kind of this pure DC story. You know, it's something we've seen before in that vein, but it feels different because of this new universe that feels more of a mainstay than we've had in the past with DC. Again, these big names like Scott Snyder returning, I think is a really big help to show how big this is going to be. Having the ultimate great creative teams like Kelly Thompson, Joshua Williamson, having some great titles here. So Jeff Lemire, kind of list goes on to make this feel really exciting. I also really like that the releases for this month and the months to come don't feel too overwhelming. You know, Absolute Batman, Absolute Wonder Woman are not coming out on the same week. They're coming out in different weeks, so you can kind of enjoy it. And this feels like a really good launch to hopefully a really fun initiative where people just pick up DC Comics again if you haven't picked up in a while, or if you've never read comics. Hopefully this is a good jumping on point. I will say for this issue, I don't know if this book is a good jumping on point. There's a lot of characters you're not going to know. The main character of this is Booster Gold. But I think if you're a DC fan, if you know anything about DC, either if you've been off DC or you've been enjoying DC for decades and decades, you're going to have a really good time with this one. And I thought it was really, really solid. So overall, going to give that 4.5 stars. The artwork was so good for this one. It was a really fun book that gets me excited for comics, you know? So giving that 4.5 stars, it is worth the hype. Pick it up, especially if you are already in the comic sphere. New readers, you might want to check out some of the other books instead. But yeah, giving that 4.5 stars, this is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite books of the week was. And last week, your favorite book was Ultimate Spider-Man, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.